Hello everybody, I am Alejandro, the CGI nerd. I am going to be taking this character head and I've made some blend shapes. So let's look at those really quick. Actually, I saved them out as OBJs, so I could import them, but that's the whole point of the script we're going to be building today. Let me open up the file. Here at the desktop, character head, I saved them here into the scenes folder. So I have a couple blend shapes that I made so that we can make sure that everything is working properly for the blend shapes that we are working, or the whole script that we're working on. Okay, so I have the script editor here, and basically I just have a kind of simple character here, and I want to be able to import those blend shapes and attach them to the head and have that all happen automatically. This will be a kind of nice tool when we're working on a production workflow where we have a whole bunch of people working on the file and we have a whole bunch of separate files for each one of the blend shapes. So let's start doing that. So I'm going to start off by importing Maya.cmds as MC. So let me minimize that for now because we don't need it right now. And now I'm going to create a function. So in this function, it is just going to be define import blend. That sounds good. And with the blend shapes here, I've set a project, but let's just make sure that it is set to the correct place. So I am going into that folder on the desktop, have workspace here, so I'm going to set. The file is in that same area, so that's fine. And what I want to do is be able to get the path for that workspace. And in order to do that, we are going to do path equals, so we're creating a variable called path, mc.workspace. And in order to get that path, we need a query. So query equals true. And after we query, we got to tell it what we're going to query. So we're going to query the directory. And we're going to say that is equal to true. True. There we go. And let's test this out. So I'm going to do not path, but print path, just to make sure that we are getting it correct. So nothing happened now because we're not actually running the function. So let's do that now. Import blend query. Okay, I misspelled that. Typo query. There we go. So we can see we're looking at the user's desktop character head. So we're in the right place. When we look at it, the project is set here, but we actually want to go into the scenes folder. So we can modify this script here, or the variable. So we're going to say path is equal to path plus, and we can add a string, and it's going to be scenes. And let me make sure I spelled it with an S. Yep, scenes. Okay, so now when we print the path, now we're looking directly into the scenes, which is great. That's what we want to do because that's where we're going to be importing the files from. So let's get a list of all the files inside of that directory. In order to do that, we need to import OS and sys in order to run this function. So we're going to be creating a variable called blendFiles. And that is going to be based off of os list directory or dir, and we're going to go into the path. So this function, what it's going to do is look at this path that we defined up here, and we are going to assign it, or we're going to create a list of items that is going to be saved into that based off of everything that is inside of that directory. So let's check what that gives us by printing that variable. So we can see that we have those two files now, the C mouth happy and C mouth sad. That is working nicely now. And I want to be able to create a blend shape before we start assigning and importing everything to this face. So what I'm going to do is call the blendShape function, so mc.blendShape, and that blendShape file, we want to do face, but just so that we can make this a little bit more flexible in the future, I'm going to save this into a variable. So let's call this base shape, because it's the base shape that we're going to attach everything to. Base shape. And I'm going to assign a name to this variable here, and we're going to need to use it a few times. So let's call this blend shape name, and that is good, but we have to define that. So it's going to be blend shape name equals, let's call this face blend shapes. Okay, so here my particular file, the head is called face. So I am going to do that. That has to be a string. There we go. So let's run this. And with the file selected, let me minimize this for a moment. We scroll down here, we can see that we have the blend shape. So I was running it before, testing it before running it. But you can see that this time it ran through, and the second time it ran, it has that. So you can see that we have it working there. But in this one, we're just creating an empty blend shape. Let's delete the history on this object. And run this again so that you can see what it would look like by default. So it's called face BlendShapes, and there's nothing in the BlendShapes right now. That is exactly what we need at this point. Although every time we run this, you'll see that we add another BlendShape, and it's not going to work exactly the way we want it to, because it's adding a whole bunch of history into this BlendShape, or the geometry within the construction history. So what I like to do is, let's jump back to the beginning here, and I'm going to delete and then base shape. So I don't actually want to delete the base shape itself, but what I want to delete from it is the construction history. Oops, let's try spelling correctly. History, and then equals true. So when we run this now, it should give us just the BlendShapes no matter how many times we run it. In another scene, depending on what your workflow is, you might not want to delete the history and just make sure that it's working properly, because you might have other deformers and BlendShapes and things like that attached to it. But in this case, just because I want to be able to test it and not have to go in and delete the history over and over again, I am going to just delete the history here. But like I said, maybe in your production workflow, it can accommodate for that, where you know that you're going to need to do this. But like I said, you might have a whole other like rig that is attached, so you don't want to delete the history and have to worry about all the skin weights and things like that. Okay, so I have this here now, and I want to create a for loop. So we're going to do for object in blend files. And just for now, let's print object. So it's going to loop through each item inside of the list of blend files, and then going sorry about that, you guys probably can hear my daughter in the back. She's kind of yelling and playing while I'm recording this. But anyways, I'm going to do, it's going to go through the list of the blend files, and then print each object. Let's test that this works. So we get each one individually. That is great. So I don't need to print this right now because we know what it's doing. And let me get rid of these prints because we're kind of done with them. We know it's working properly. If we need to troubleshoot it, we can get it back again. Okay, so now I want to get just the name, because the name of the geometry, I named it the same name of the file to make things a little bit easier, so that way I don't have to go in and dig and find out what that name is for that object. So I need to get just the name right here. So let's do obj name. It's going to be the object name, and it's going to be equal to object dot split, and we're going to split it from the period, and then obj name is equal to obj name 0 because we want the first thing, so it's going to be 0, then 1, because we're splitting it based off of the period here. And let's just make sure that is working. So let's test that. So we get the object name, which is great. Okay, so now we need the file path. Because we have the path to the directory we need, but we need to get the specific file path that each file is attached to. So it's going to be equal to path plus object, which is this name here that when we were testing it a while back, it was the name plus the extension, which is great. And we can print file path just to test it. And we can see that it gets the whole path together with the object name, which is what we need right now. So mc.file file path, which is the one that we just created. And I is for import. True. Okay, let's test that. So we can see that we have the two objects imported. That is great. That's the next step that we need. When we're working with BlendShapes, we don't really need to keep them around after we're done assigning them. So just for now, while we're working with the script to make it easier on us, we're going to delete obj name. So it'll run through and it reads everything and brings it into the scene. Okay, so that is great. Let's double check that. That's a little weird. Let's do F5 here. Well, we'll see if it gives us an issue. It has 4 things that are being read in, which shouldn't be happening. So we'll see if it causes an issue. Actually, let's check here. Print file path plus was imported. Okay, so we're fine. It's only done it twice. I'm not sure why it's showing that it twice in here, but it's only importing the file the once. Okay. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to assign it to the BlendShape. So the BlendShape is obviously going to be happening before we delete it because we still need it in the scene in order to assign it. So I'm going to do mc.blendShape blendShape. And then we have blendShape name. So that is going to be the name that we assigned early on as a variable when we were creating the initial blend shape, so that way we can stay consistent. And later on in the future, if you were doing something like this and created a UI for it, you can actually make this a variable where the user can actually input whatever blend shape name they want. Okay. So what we want to do with that blend shape is edit. So we have to say edit is equal to true, and then we are going to assign a new target. So target is going to be equal to, the first thing that we need is the base geometry, which we assigned a variable for. It is base shape. And then we need an index number. So the index number is basically going to be the way it's listed and ordered inside of the blend shape node. The first spot is going to start off as 0, so I'm going to say index number is equal to 0. And then at the end of this loop, I'm just going to say index number is equal to index number plus 1. Let's space that out. There we go. Doesn't need the spacing, it's just makes it look nicer, easier to read. I can't run this right now because it's going to crash, but if I run it now, it's going to give us a syntax error. So let's finish this line. We're going to say it is index number, except I wrote number over here. It's just num. Okay, so then the next thing that we need in here for the target is the object name that we are going to be assigning to the blend shape, and we have that there. And then the last number is the range that it's going to be in. We'll do it at 1. Okay, so let's try running this in here. Now I have invalid syntax. That's because I closed this parentheses here, but I did not close this one. So I need to make sure to add one more here. Great. It looks like everything was imported. Let's click on the face. We have the blend shapes. We have the 2 blend shapes. So we have one that smiles, and we have a sad one. I mean, not the greatest blend shapes, but I just built them super quick so that way I can use it as an example for this tutorial. Boom. So that is the way this script works. As now, at any point, if I wanted to go into my files here and I created more and more shapes, they will actually import automatically. I just have to make sure I put them in the scenes folder. Alright, I hope you guys found this useful. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.